subscriptions. Ankit's biggest achievement, which the one which I have sort of personally witnessed, is that when he was leading subscriptions for Bloomberg Quint, Ankit essentially had launched a WhatsApp bot, which drove hordes and hordes of subscribers for BQ, right? And Ankit was one of the masterminds behind BQ Live, right? Which was Bloomberg Quint subscription offering. Right? Ankit, always fun to sort of speak with you and learn from your learning, right? We also have with us Wahe Arabian. Wahe runs a very unique publisher, it's a very unique media house and a community by the name of State of Digital Publishing. Wahe again works with a lot of digital newsrooms, enabling them to execute their growth strategies better, right? Without further ado, Wahe, over to you. I believe you have a presentation which you would like to share with us.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Of course. Sorry, guys. I guess our previous panelists did an awesome job in covering some of those points that was covered around what we can go do when you go live. But essentially, with my part, what I want to go through with you guys is some of the nuances in terms of understanding what type of distribution methods are out there, and back to where Sonakshi was saying, focus on 1 and 2, just helping you guys understand what is out there so you can focus on those main things, and then some of the considerations that you need when you're planning as well. So more tactical, bit more sort of the nuance on the search aspect. Sorry, I guess what we can obviously, sorry, I'll jump through these slides because I guess everyone knows the benefit of it. And I know a lot of publishers, particularly in India, have seen live event coverage work well. Particularly, there's been the COVID bump as of last year, and that's been continuing since. And there's obviously a lot of benefits with covering live events as well. Particularly as there's a new segment and generation that's coming, and just native or on video, and also there's been more different monetization strategies as well. So not only thinking about live events in terms of like the sports and everything else, like there's been actually like events in terms of cooking events or e-commerce that we're hearing a lot about publishers that I'm working with as well that are covering more and affiliate strategies that they're working on this year, and they're looking at ways of using live events as a transformation of the previous version of events where it's more offline. So yeah, there's definitely, it's not going away, it's just evolving. And we have to also consider that each niche as well, like even though your publication is covering live events across the board, like what you're covering in coronavirus is not going to be the same in terms of how it appears in the search results, like sports is, or cryptocurrencies, or even like when a new show is announced and you're covering what the season ahead of that show is. There's all different nuances in that and how search results reflect that. So you have to really have a look at what kind of results are appearing and try to reflect your content strategy around that. So for example, just briefly, like if you look at COVID, just going to jump a few slides ahead. If you look at COVID, for example, the Times of India, to come into the position of over here at the bottom where they're in the top result of the actual top stories segment. This is actually the search result from India. I was able to replicate it. They actually, what helped them was really create that topic hub for them where they actually had all that data, all the, even e-commerce products, even like the latest news, even the live updates on that single page, which made it a super page, a pillar page that allowed them to be considered as a topical authority in that area. So they were actually outranking a lot of the health sites and the government sites that were covering the main topics. There's the likes of, top stories. There's even like Google stealing a lot of some of the traffic here, and they're feeding in a lot of data with the upcoming matches as well, and some of those considerations that you need in order to also appear in the search results. So it's not equal, as I mentioned, but at the moment, from a search point of view, these are some of the main sort of products in inverted commas you can consider when you want to leverage live events. So there's Discover, which is very unpredictable, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know. But it is becoming a little bit more predictable now with a lot more. There's recent articles about how they're factoring more in personalization, particularly from email, and that's becoming more increasing factor on social. So there's Discover, there's actual search. So don't underestimate as well, like the normal search results, the blue links. That can also drive you decent traffic as well, even if you're not in top stories, particularly for a new publisher. That's becoming harder for them to become indexed. There's a new product around Showcase where you can get licensing content deals from Google and Facebook. There's even like live videos as well that's you can benefit from either YouTube or Twitter that feeds into the search results as well. There's the normal Google search results. There's web stories. There's top stories in itself, where it's a lot more harder these days, but it's still a possibility, which gives you the most lion's share of the traffic. The Discover and top stories and probably the search as the top order, 3 orders I've seen have worked the best in terms of traffic for live search.
So the opportunity itself, Vahe, as you're saying, is across now 7 different formats, right? And not just conventional Google News. Right.
Exactly. It's no longer like that red ticker live button where it just comes up in AMP and the top stories. It's not like that anymore. It's very splintered. It's very diversified now.
Interesting. Sure. Please go on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give you an example, this is like one of our clients. It's a football news website. I segmented the traffic for one particular match. And this is just, they're not in top stories at all. They cover a lot of news football stories, and this is just from organic results. So we were able to help them rank top positions for an upcoming match, like a finals match that they had in the past year. They were able to get over 20,000 users for that particular day. They're not as big as publisher sites as maybe a lot of our panelists are in here today, but for them, this is a big win for them because essentially what they did was they just made sure they did the principles of what many of our panelists discussed was what are the clusters or stories that happened prior to the event, making sure the markup was there. Then they went live and they made sure that they consistently were there. So that way, once the live match was there and they covered the live match, they just saw a big spike in traffic. And then there's the follow-up stories that you then want to look at in order to then continue that momentum for next matches. So it's attainable. Don't try to make a far away goal. And basically, you can even start off with like an organic search result to get live traffic because of the query and intent there.
Right.
So I guess to break it down to an example of how you can do that. So let's say like there was a couple of years ago, like the wildfires, there's even like the wildfire stories as well that we're seeing in the Northern Hemisphere that's happening. There would be one pillar story about that. And then there's going to be the clusters or the related stories that would be published like that. And then like our previous panelists were mentioning, you can hyperlink them into one page. And then that's what's going to be how you execute that strategy. And essentially, that's how, but by looking at trends as well and looking at other keyword research, you'll be able to find and predict a lot more better how to sort of cover that on time, which then leads on to the fact that, speed is a very important factor. Being able to cover that more quickly than your competitors. Yes, there is importance of the quality of the journalism, that there's no discounting that. But a lot of strategies, like even a panelist at an event that even Vivek was involved with us last year, one of the panelists from New York Times they said that like they just covered a snippet of the news event as soon as they heard about it, and then they got the journalists to then cover it more extensive detail after that, so that they can get an index, they can get a live, and they can get that first mover advantage than many of their other competitors, because it's live news and is very competitive, as you guys know. So speed is still a very important factor, and we're not trying to compromise the content of the quality of the journalism. It's more of how can you incrementally cover that event to get that first mover advantage, and then you have to also think about like what's the short-term versus long-term coverage as well. So if you have more like a long-term coverage like coronavirus or other events, then you might need to consider like creating a topic hub where you can have a lot of those articles clustered together. If it's something more of the likes of short-term coverage, like a one-time event, then maybe like a one single page where you have the hot links and the timeline with all the cards showing would be a different approach. So looking at how you're going to cover the live events is going to also be important for short-term versus long-term tactical. I think you have to also consider about having a long live coverage as a long-term play, even for SEO as well. It's not going to go away, and it's going to be always in a way to tap into breaking stories for more competitive spaces as well. So I guess there's some steps you can consider. I put some top level stuff in there, and I can definitely put in a template as well for our attendees as well when these slides are shared to look at more of the on page as it's been covered in the previous stuff. But if you still want to consider to get that live ticker on your top stories potentially, there's still the application you can fill out to appear in that, but it is very limited to a specific number of publishers. There's a quota from Google, and it's not always going to appear. But if you want to consider doing that, then you can consider doing that. But the important thing is about planning your content. Considering how you're going to look at short-term topics versus long-term. What's the topic stories that's going to come up to lead up to the event? So even in the football context, for example, there's for us the pillar piece is going to be the live event, but before that there's about stories about what the lineup's going to be, what the channel frequencies of where it's going to be covered, what's the potential rumors about injuries or stuff like that. All those type of events is going to lead up to the live event, and those type of things aren't things that can be replicated by AI, or it has to still be covered in depth and in quality. And considering what different contexts or angles you can look at that. So if you're a big national site, maybe adding a local or state level coverage can help you be more competitive against maybe more bigger competitors and take that advantage. If you're more, sorry, Vivek.
No, go on, please. I have a bunch of questions here with me right now, but yeah, please go on.
Sure, no worries. If you're not a particular publisher, bigger publisher in particular as well, look at some software and solutions that you can look at to roll that out live. Like for example, Arena.im or SourceFabric, they can automatically help you create that platform on your website, particularly if you're WordPress. And then otherwise, if you want to roll out more of a comprehensive schema, again, I'll send you some more information about that, but you can then roll that out manually as well. And then I guess the main other tactic from an SEO perspective is try to leverage that live coverage traffic to dovetail that into new topic or related topic areas, which then can help you create a cycle of live event coverage, which can then help you develop more topical expertise and authority more quickly in new areas as well. So use that as a way to dovetail into new areas and new audiences that you otherwise wouldn't have experienced before. So that can be through writing an overall recap, creating a curated list, which then can link to other top stories that aren't related to that one, and even newsjack a related story. For example, like let's say if you're covering the match, then you can dovetail into a new player, which is then going to a new team, which you can then cover a new team story, and that whole cycle begins with that new team coverage as well for that particular sports publisher. So that's an example of that. And I guess there's just some other considerations again, besides what our previous panelist said. Definitely what I've seen from my point of view as well is really have your infrastructure ready. Concurrent traffic happens a lot of times, and we've seen cases where, even for smaller publishers, where server error, they've gone out. There's been instances where there's been maybe even an update that's happened at that day as they've covered the live event, and they've, as a result, sort of been the traffic has been throttled for several months because that negative impact has happened through an update. So really invest your time in infrastructure, make sure that all those integrations are done properly, use your SEO as an extension of your technical product capability, and get that SEO person to help you embed those things organization-wide. Yes, you'll have a champion, but have that organization-wide, because otherwise, if your technical and product initiatives that you're running isn't compliant, then you're going to fall down and you're going to be throttled for several months if an update doesn't happen. And essentially, obviously, these things aren't going to be the same for every single site. So definitely, you know, like, because with Discover as well, now that it's becoming a bit more, it's becoming a bit more, what can I say, the word? It's becoming a bit more obvious of how you can replicate that, from my experience, by using email or other channels. Definitely experiment and create your own playbook to then replicate that across other stories and refine that across different niches. And don't use the same thing across all your niches, because it's not going to work. So definitely, if you're going to have that person, dedicate having a live events person, and then work internally with your SEO and audience development team to create different niche playbooks to make that as successful as possible. So,
awesome, yeah. Right? Yeah, this is I love the fact that you have now like a ready to use checklist, at least from an SEO standpoint, on what needs to be done. When you're sort of gearing up for a live event, right? Ankit, I have a bunch of questions for both you and Wahe, and I'll start with you specifically, right? Mm-hmm. So Wahe spoke so much more about organic growth, organic traffic planning, right? And a lot of Wahe's points were all around what can you do before the event, right? Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned, one of the points almost hidden in his slides was to build initial momentum, right? Use emails and push notifications, right? And I've seen you championing all these channels of communication and sort of experimenting with them exhaustively to drive a specific outcome, right? Now, I want to start with this, right? Which is when you look at a live event, and I understand that you work, your current work at Inc. 42 is very different from a conventional newsroom covering mainstream news. But when you sort of, back in the Bloomberg days, right? How would you look at a live event or a breaking news? As a marketer, is it an opportunity to convert your traffic into subscribers, right? Or do you have your hands tied from the editorial and product teams, right? What's the amount of freedom you enjoy as a marketer? Yeah.
So thanks for the question, Vivek. If you look at if you look at this, the event, I think it is and basis the experience, especially at BQ, the experience is that you don't convert the users on the specific event day. So I'll give you examples. So let's say if it is a budget day or elections day, when I say elections day, it is a result day, right? Yeah. Or if it is a let's say budget, annual budget. All these events, people have a lot of information from various media houses. So these days are where you don't go in depth, but you try to cover the volume. You cover various areas of areas of that specific topic. So on those days, we have seen multiple times that your subscription numbers drop. So initially when we started the subscription BQ Blue, and we thought that these would be the days where we will have more traffic on the site, so more people would be converting. But I think what we have seen that people don't buy on those days. So but now what you can do, if people are not subscribing and just consuming the news, a lot of new folks come to your website on those days. So let's say in BQ we have seen traffic quadrupling, or becoming 5 times 6 times any usual traffic. So what do you do? Like we have discussed a lot of times, Vivek, that it is all about how you convert your unknown users to known users. So at least what we did, we at least tried to convert these users from unknown to known by giving them, let's say, you can just subscribe to BQ Blue free trial, for example, or we gave them a lot of reasons so that they become our known users. So that at least we get their email IDs, and then from there we start building a loyal base. And over the time, we have also seen that people, we converted these folks later, let's say 3 months, 4 months down the line. We have seen the, people who have visited on a specific day for the first time are have been converted to subscribers. So to me, I think events are the opportunity to get new users on your website. Let's say, like Vahe said, you do a lot of stuff on organics, on the organic front, and be ready on that side so that you join this wave and get new audience to your website. And I think the next stage of the marketing is how you convert them to known users and then start engaging them. So, and not just that, Vivek, after that, I mean, it should not end that, the moment you have captured your audience, known details, you should not stop there. I think next steps are, you should have an onboarding plan, how you are going to engage this audience, what all, let's say, what all communication you will do, and specifically in that context from where people have subscribed to your, your free trial. So it also depends upon how you are building that relationship.
Right.
And obviously, it's a very short-term memory that people, let's say, if
Yeah.
people have just come to your website, they don't know you much. They've just read one article or two, and maybe they have seen that, okay, the article is good. Maybe I should be subscribing to your, to your free trial. But I think you have to ensure that you don't stop at at capturing the data, but you have to engage and continuously monitor the engagement, and basis that take further call.
Okay, so I love that answer because it clearly debunks the hypothesis, which usually every marketer has, that more traffic means more conversions, right? You sort of clearly debunking that the traffic quality and intent is very different when you are doing breaking news coverage or live news coverage, right? So I completely agree. It makes rational sense, and your experiments have sort of proven that as well. Right. Now, I wanted to sort of also talk a bit about how can you build momentum. So one is, we all sit and pray at the altar of Google and Facebook that the news that we have published gets visibility in search, gets visibility in Discover and Showcase, and on YouTube, and so on and so forth, right? But how do you take charge and say, I'm going to drive traffic to this, which is where your own marketing channels come into picture, which is your emails, your notifications, your WhatsApp updates, and so on, right? And you have done some extensive work on WhatsApp, Telegram, social messaging channels, right? What's been your experience with that so far?
So Vivek, I mean, there are three broad areas where you can focus on the event. So number one is organic, like why has covered that in detail. The second part is your own channels, push notification, emails, maybe WhatsApp. Some of the news brands still use SMS, and I mean, we can say that, okay, it is not bad to use SMS on the on the right days. While the third channel that I have seen we can use powerfully is are your aggregator channels. So let's say your InShots of the world, Daily Hunts of the world, Geo News of the world. So what we also did, that and it's on the one side, it is like obviously they have algos and everything on their side, and they select the news, but I think it is also a relationship game. So where you talk to these people in advance, you ensure that the kind of news that they require, or the kind of topic that they require, you are covering exactly the same, and bridging that gap as a marketer between the editorial team and your distribution partner. So that way we have seen, let's say, even a couple of pushes from, let's say, Geo News or from InShots, it makes your day. So, and it covers everything else. So let's say your organic or own traffic combined would not be able to give you that kind of that kind of volume if it is hit rightly. So, and also in BQ's newsroom, Vivek, there was also a debate that whether we should cover. So let's say there are two strategies on an event day, and especially from budget. So one strategy is where you are continuously, you're pushing news every 30 minutes, every 10 minutes, whatever. So let's say whatever finance minister says, you just push that news, and that's it. While on the other side, the strategy is that you will not push a lot of news in volume, but you will send that quality news at the right time, where you have, even in, let's say, a couple of hours, you have deeper analysis, and you cover the depth of the topic. So in BQ, our strategy was to to focus on depth over volume, and where people who are just, so it is like you're focusing on news, but we are giving you something more than news, which you may get in the evening or by by, let's say, tomorrow, but we are giving you in the couple of hours. So we are working on quality as compared to quantity. So that way, let's say in shots of the world would believe that yes, this content should be pushed because this is different. This is not just, this is not a newsy item. So I think that is another strategy where you can you can compare the quality versus quantity, and you will get. But the idea is how you are utilizing this quality game. So otherwise, single news will not make a difference. But if you are aligning all your channels correctly, I think quality game can work. Otherwise, it is also okay if you are in the quantity game and you want to bring more traffic on your website. I think it is fair. It is there is no harm in it. But yeah, there you get people spending more time and looking forward to you. And obviously, next time or in such events, then you will also see increasing your direct traffic, because it also creates a perception that the quality part of your of when you show quality, people will come back to you when it comes to when I want more information than news.
Okay. Now, okay, what's been so very specifically going onto Telegram and WhatsApp, right? These two communication platforms have become they've opened their APIs in the recent in the last 2 years, right? A lot of new developments have happened on these two platforms in terms of allowing broadcasters to communicate with their audience, right? And it's sort of precisely it's for all particular purposes, it's an equivalent to email, right? Email is a known identifier, right? So is a mobile number on a WhatsApp or a SMS, right? Have you seen? Have you seen these channels scaling up when it comes to broadcasting news and getting traffic back on the website, right? And second, how would you sort of advise somebody who is young, like a young newsroom, to leverage these channels for audience development?
So Vivek, like we have, we have started WhatsApp for BQ way back in 2017, October of 2017. So I think at that point in time, there were no discussions around WhatsApp APIs and Baba, not in picture. So this was the time when we started building WhatsApp for BQ. And obviously, I mean, before doing this, we did a couple of surveys on our audience, and we found that over 70% people wanted news on WhatsApp. And though they were also not happy with the kind of news that was being shared on WhatsApp even then, but still they wanted news on WhatsApp because it is convenient and it's a speed game. So and basis this survey on a very large audience, we found that yes, we can start this. And then we started building WhatsApp channel, and over the time we built, and I mean it's a Vivek, that it's a HBR case study now, all this no, I mean there can be a separate webinar on this, but I'll try to wrap this in the next 2 to 3 minutes period. So what we did, we worked on ensuring that this first, the marketing side of it, the adoption side of it is is up to the people get to know about this innovation that we have done. So we launched a referral program where people would get rewarded if they are referring, let's say, a certain number of people. And we did a lot of such contests where, let's say, if you're highest on that specific day to refer, you will get a stay in Vanessa, for example. Though it's a 50,000 cost for for us, but the point is that a lot of people, and BQ's audience is anyways, you will find that BQ's audience is also creme de la creme. So you will require more more push when it comes to referring a product. So on one side, we definitely tried that WhatsApp as a product. People find it innovative. People find that it's different, and it can ensure that when I am telling it to my friend, I am perceived as an innovator. Right? that and that was the trigger that we tried to play on, that the people who are referring are not just referring for the rewards, but also ensuring that the other people whom they are reaching out to, they feel that I am an innovator because I am using something like WhatsApp to receive the news. And today this may look very cliche, but Vivek, at that point in time, it was a very different game altogether, because
It
we were
was, yes,
building a category at that point in time, right?
absolutely, yes.
And then from there, we have seen that like in a month we have received 50,000 people joining WhatsApp, even 100,000 people joining WhatsApp in 1 month's period. So it was, I mean, I don't use this word, but it was a kind of growth hack, right? Where
Yes,
you are seeing your engines are working on it, on their own. And then from there we also ensured that on the other side it is not just a news broadcast. So because and obviously we have at that point in time we also calculated that there should also be a competitive advantage. So your competition should not be able to copy you fast. So what we also did in parallel, we created a layers of innovative products on top of it. So let's say a feature of news bot, where you are just writing a writing a keyword and you get your news, you get relevant news on your WhatsApp. Or you're writing a stock name and you get the stock price. Or you are just adding stocks in your watch list, and at the designated time you get the stock prices,
yeah,
and the referral system within WhatsApp ecosystem. So there were so many innovative features that we added on top of on top of this broadcast product. And I think over the time we have seen 500,000 people joining WhatsApp in 6 months period. And and then rest is history, because the entire country has seen that every news publisher in this country has opted for WhatsApp. And later what, for Facebook changed the way, changed the ecosystem, changed the dynamic.
completely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, that is super insightful, Ankit. And I know you're strapped for time right now, so thank you so much for being here. Why I have one last question for you,
Vivek.
and very specifically because you had mentioned about videos, and you sort of shown that screenshot where videos are popping up in the news feed, right? In fact, I have two questions. Right? Number one, uh, core web vitals is becoming important, right? We
Yep.
still don't have the exact date on when it's going to become universal, but we're also seeing AMP going through motions right now, right? Uh, have you seen any specific trends already? Do you have any specific insight which you think is worth sharing with our friends across newsrooms? And second one is in terms of video, right? Is it a battle on is it a question of YouTube versus others, or is it a question of only YouTube, uh, only YouTube, or is it or do other players also have a chance? Yeah.
That's a fair question. So in terms of the first part with Web Vitals and AMP, I'd say I started seeing already publishers already remove AMP. So basically, what you have to consider is whether or not the performance on AMP itself, because with Core Web Vitals improving, technically you don't really need AMP anymore if you've got your Core Web Vitals in place. So I've seen publishers where, because there's a lot of time and development required for customizing your AMP, they've seen the financial payoff not worth it. And even in some cases where good core web experience pages actually gets better CTR than your actual AMP pages. So what I suggest anyone who's listening to do is actually look at your search console, look at your overall performance between each of those, because AMP's the platform itself, and to see which one's doing better. And I guess you don't have to necessarily, I think for the short term, yes, keep AMP and make sure that you're monitoring the performance of that. But over time, people are going to be more reluctant to remove it. With Web Vitals, it's more of a relative thing. The more people actually adopt better practices, that's when they're going to see other people who don't keep up are going to eventually suffer. They're going to eventually drop down because it's become an important factor. It's more future proofing yourself. If you can do it sooner, the better, basically. With regards to video itself, I would say, like, YouTube is dominating in terms of the video snippet result, but what I'd consider is what objectives you're using your video for. So if it's more from a distribution point of view, definitely use YouTube, because obviously that's what Google's biased towards. If it's more of a branding play and a monetization play, look at your own video play platforms which are inbuilt with SEO features, because that's going to ultimately give more weighting to those pages that are going to be on there, and it's going to give you opportunity to drive more traffic and more monetization. Because you see in a lot of other publisher sites where they might have a video gallery section, but they don't get any traffic at all. So they just put a single video player on there and that's it. So I think it just depends on the objectives that you want to use it. The video player.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very interesting perspective, right? It sort of just helps in making that decision very easily for somebody who is dabbling between the two of these, right? So guys, I know we're slightly over time right now, but thank you so much, for being here with us. I really appreciate you guys taking the time and joining us. And why I know you're in a different time zone altogether, it must be early evening for you there, right? Am I right?
Yes, it's 5:30. So 4.5 hours ahead of you guys here.
Right. Okay. Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much once again. Thanks, Ankit. Thanks, Vahe.
Thank you, Vivek. Thanks,
pleasure.
bye.
Thanks, Ankit. Thanks.